In this video, we'll start getting into what we call demand, right? What is demand, right? But before we get into demand, we have to define something else that we like to call your willingness to pay, right? So the idea is it's pretty much what it sounds like. Willingness to pay. How much am I willing to pay for a good or service, right? So we'll put here basic idea is the most is willing and able. So this is key here, right? Willing. So first I have to be willing to buy this good or service, right? And I have to have the means to do it, right? I'm willing and able to buy. The most an individual is willing and able to pay for a good or service. Okay, so this is the first thing we need to think about, right? Willingness to pay. All right, so basically what our demand curve tells us, right, is how much someone is willing and able to pay at different prices, right? This is what demand basically tells us. All right, so here's our, put a book definition here for what we call demand, right? So we'll put here the amount of a good or service consumers are willing and able to buy at various prices. Okay, this is what we'll define our demand as. Okay, now first, I think the easiest way to see this is just to go ahead and we'll draw our first demand curve. Let me put this over here to the side so we can kind of keep this definition in mind. Alright, so here we'll draw out our first demand curve. I know, mark your calendars. First day you see a demand curve. Alright, so we'll start with on our vertical axis over here, we'll label this P for price. So it's right here, price. And on this horizontal axis, we'll label this here Q for quantity. Alright, good. Now, the demand curve in general, it looks something like this, and we'll label this D for demand. Okay, so notice first, the first thing you notice is that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay, all right, so this is our demand curve. This is basically a graphical illustration between price and quantity demanded here. Okay, all right, so if you notice, it's downward sloping. Okay, let's also define quantity demanded, right? What is quantity demanded? Well, just basically at a given price, how much of this good or service are we willing and able to purchase? So we'll say at this price, we'll call this P1. Okay, I don't know what this price is, but it doesn't really matter, right? At P1, how much am I willing and able to purchase? Well, I'm willing and able to purchase Q1. Okay, so we'll write a general definition here. So the amount of a good or service consumers are willing and able to purchase at a given price. All right, good. All right, so just looking at this demand curve, again, we have a negative relationship here. So what does that mean? All right, well, basically what it means is that as my quantity increases, my price decreases. Okay, so notice if I were to mark here P2, which I know is less than P1, right? How do I know that? Well, I know as I move up along this axis here, these numbers are increasing, so P1 has to be greater than P2. Now, that means that if this is P2 over here, this is my quantity out here. Okay? All right, good. This is my quantity demanded at this price, P2. Okay, now, it's pretty easy to see that when my price is P1, my quantity is Q1. When my price goes down, my quantity goes up. Okay? It's pretty intuitive, right? If something is cheaper, well, then you're probably going to want to go ahead and buy more of it. Okay? This is what we call the law of demand, right? Now, again, when we're talking about demand, when we start talking about all these variables, we're always assuming ceteris paribus, right? I'm sure you know what ceteris paribus is. Let me make a side note here. You know what? Let me write it on another paper. All right, ceteris paribus. All that means is holding all else equal, right? Assuming everything else stays the same. So assuming everything else stays the same, as price decreases, quantity increases. So ceteris paribus, right? All else equal. Okay, excellent. Now, let's get back to the law of demand here for 1 second. Right now, what do we mean by this law of demand? Okay, so the law of demand, again, it's very intuitive. Holding all else equal, okay, as my price goes up, my quantity demanded goes down, right? So, ceteris paribus, as price increases, quantity demanded decreases. And vice versa. Okay? By vice versa, I mean when price goes down, quantity demanded will go up.